Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy. I'd love to be your go-to guide for all things wine, food, and the amazing places they take us. Here on Pour and Explore, we'll sip, savor, and wander through the exciting world of wine, discuss incredible cuisines, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, I'll bring you lively conversations with wine experts, chefs, travel pros, and fellow enthusiasts. We'll share practical tips, hilarious tales, and plenty of inspiration to fuel your next adventure. So grab a glass, pull up a chair, and join me as we pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. All right, hey there to all of my cheese lovers, wine lovers, and those lucky enough to be both. Welcome back to Pour and Explore. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, certified sommelier, cheese fanatic, and your wine wingman for this flavor-packed journey. Today's episode is all about dreamy, creamy, craveable companion to wine, and that, of course, is cheese. We're going to dive into the world of cheese types and regions, some of the do's and don'ts, of course, of pairing cheese and wine, and how to best enjoy different styles, melted, cold, crumbly, gooey, you name it, how to enjoy different styles, and how to build the ultimate cheese board. You know, I met this amazing woman last year by the name of Irene Clemente, and shout out to Irene. I'll make sure I tag her in this episode. She owns this amazing business up in Long Beach, California called Mrs. Platters, and she builds these beautiful platters, boards, even tablescapes of beautiful cheeses and all of the accompaniments that go along with them. I had so much fun talking with her. This was before I had my podcast. I'll definitely have Irene on maybe next season. But I wanted to do a little crash course into cheese because I love teaching about it, and all of the great things that I learned from Irene are still with me to this day. So again, shout out to her, and I appreciate the inspiration. So we're going to dedicate this episode, everybody, to Mrs. Platters herself, Irene Clemente, up there in Long Beach, California, doing really, really cool things. So stick around until the end. I've got a free downloadable wine and cheese pairing chart to help you impress your guests or just treat yourself to the next level night in cheesedom. All right, let's dig in. What's the first thing we should know about cheese? I would say the first thing that we should know about cheese are the different types. Now, we go into a grocery store, and just like wine, don't buy your cheese in a grocery store. Try to find a local cheesemonger, a small shop. There are cheese shops all over the country that do amazing things. Even a place like Whole Foods, even though it is a grocery store, has someone on site who knows what they're talking about that can point you in the right direction. But I'm here today to talk a little bit about the basics so you can feel more comfortable, like I want you to do when it comes to buying wine and drinking wine and so on. I want you to feel more comfortable with cheese, and then we're going to talk in just a little bit about pairing wine with cheese. It is the ultimate combination, and you'll find out why in just a few minutes. So let's break cheese down by type. There are 6 general, and I'm saying general because we're going to keep it simple today. I'm not going to go into too crazy detail. 6 general categories to keep in mind. The first one is fresh cheese. Fresh cheese, I want you to think about mozzarella. I want you to think about burrata cheese, ricotta cheese, chèvre. You know, these cheeses they're light, they're creamy, sometimes spreadable on bread, crackers, fruit, your fingers, whatever. However you like to enjoy it is totally cool with me. And sometimes these fresh cheeses can even be tangy. In the case of goat cheese, for example, chèvre. Really, really different flavor profiles across the board, but they're fresh, they're light, and they just have this really, really very specific flavor quality to them, and they're all wonderful. The next type of cheese that we're going to talk about is soft ripened cheese. Soft ripened cheese, and this is, as you can tell by the word ripened, it is a cheese that's been hanging out for a little while. So it's not fresh, like in category number one. Soft ripened cheese are cheeses like brie. Camembert is another example of soft ripened cheese. You've got these bloomy rinds on the outside of the cheese, often white looking, sometimes colored, maybe a red or some blues from time to time. Bloomy rinds, and these cheeses are always rich and have gooier centers. So the rind on the outside is going to be a little more firm, and the inside is going to be a little more gooey. So that is your soft ripened type of cheese. And then we move into the semi-soft type of cheese, and we're going to talk about cheeses like Havarti and Fontina and Monterey Jack cheese, pepper jack cheese for that matter as well. And the thing that's great about semi-soft cheese is these are the cheeses that you want to use for melting. Put them in your grilled cheese sandwich, over your burgers. Cheddar is another soft cheddar, not necessarily, just regular run-of-the-mill cheddar cheese. And, we're going to talk a little bit more about cheddar in just a minute, but these are great melty cheeses. American cheese, if you even want to call it cheese, is another great example. There are real cheeses out there that have that American thing going on, but that is what we call semi-soft cheese, and these are great for melting. And then we get into hard cheese. Hard cheeses are going to be Spanish Manchego cheese, sharp cheddar cheese, cheddar that's been allowed to sit around for a while and age a little bit and some of the moisture to come out of it. Comté cheese from the eastern side of France, absolutely amazing. These cheeses are going to be firm, they're sliceable, and these hard cheeses are perfect for charcuterie boards. They're easy to slice. They're easy to get your hands on them, which is great, and they do really well sitting around for a while if you're hosting a party with cocktail hour or wine tasting, whatever the case might be. These hard cheeses you can slice, and they're going to hang out for a bit, which is really, really cool. I would be remiss to talk about cheeses, without talking about the whole line, and there's 1,000 of them, and I'm not going to talk about 1,000 of them, but we're going to talk a little bit about blue cheese. Blue cheese, of course, you're going to find Gorgonzola, Roquefort, Stilton are all great, very popular examples of blue cheese. And blue cheese is essentially a cheese that has been inoculated with a mold that's going to create the bluiness and the crumbliness in those cheeses. Blue cheese tends to be very bold flavors. They tend to be on the saltier side, and some of them can even be on the funkier side as far as smells go. And we're going to talk about funky cheese in just a minute because, in my opinion, the funkiest cheeses are the best. And I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. You've got washed rind cheeses. One of my favorite stinky cheeses in the world is from the Burgundy region of France, where it comes from the same area that my favorite wine in the world comes from. So there's no surprise that I like it, and that is called Epoisse. Epoisse cheese is one of the stinkier cheeses on the market. It's got a washed rind that is kind of a coral color or an orange color, and you dig into Taleggio is another one that is very similar. These are going to have the orange rinds, pungent aromas, and they're very creamy and gooey inside. And the longer you allow these cheeses to sit out, I like to let my washed rind cheeses come to room temperature before I cut into them. And then when you do, all of the insides just start to leak out, and you scrape it up and you put it on a cracker. Oh my goodness. Making myself hungry just thinking about it. Really, really good stuff. And then, of course, that is, as I said, not the end of the types of cheeses that are out there, but these are some of the most popular ones. And then within those cheeses, you're going to have the breakdown of the different types of milk that go into making these cheeses. And again, very generally speaking, those milks are cow's milk, of course, goat's milk, definitely, like in the case of chèvre, goat cheeses of all kinds. And then sheep's milk cheese is another very popular type of milk that is used all around the world. My favorite sheep's milk cheese is manchego. I mentioned it earlier. It's one of those hard cheeses. You cut the rinds off of it, and it's salty, it's nutty, and it's one of the most amazing cheeses out there. And that is traditionally made with sheep's milk. So if you haven't had your manchego, it's available at most shops. I can't speak to the quality of all of it, but you're going to find manchego pretty much anywhere that you go. So I definitely recommend looking out for it the next time you're out there shopping for cheese as something a little bit different. All right. Let's talk a little bit about cheeses from around the world. We're going to do a little tour of some iconic regions. And of course, we can't talk about cheese without talking about the cheese motherland that is France. France produces, I think I heard somewhere recently, there's 7 or 8 thousand different cheeses that come from France. And how in the world can you keep tabs on all of them? Well, you're not. Let's talk about some of my favorites. Brie, of course, is probably the most famous French cheese. It's found on every cheese board in every style. There's different types of Brie, but we're just going to talk about Brie. And Brie was born in an area called Ile-de-France. It's really easy eating cheese. It's great melted, stick it on a sandwich, put it on panini. Really, really good stuff. Roquefort is another one that we know about. Roquefort is a blue cheese, of course, and that's from an area called Aquitaine, and it is one of the better flavor blue cheeses out there. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier. There's this beautiful cheese called Comté from an area on the east side of France in a town called Jura. In my opinion, Comté is one of the best wine cheeses out there, and it's readily available here in the States, not as much as Brie is perhaps, or Roquefort, but if you can get to a local cheesemonger or a place that specializes in cheeses or has a specialty section, Comté is really, really good one to try. Check that out. Italian cheese, of course, is no slouch either. We all know about Parmigiano Reggiano, just amazing stuff. Gorgonzola cheese, another slightly blue cheese. It even comes in a sweeter option, which is kind of fun because it's this neat juxtaposition between salty and stinky and sweet. Really, really cool cheese, Gorgonzola. And I mentioned Taleggio earlier as well. Another fun, stinky cheese to get your hands on from Italy. And again, I'm just scratching the surface here, folks. I'm not telling you the whole deal. I want you to go out and I want you to explore the world of cheese yourself. Put together a party, get some wine, call the wine guy. I'm going to turn you on to some great stuff. And you know what? I'm even going to help you with your cheese selections too. So give me a ring. Let's go to Spain. Spain isn't necessarily known for their cheese, but they are making some beautiful, beautiful cheeses. I talked about Manchego a couple of times so far, and I just can't get away from that. Manchego is wonderful. You heard me talk about it, so I'm not going to explain it anymore. There is another cheese called Mahon that is from a town in Spain called Menorca, and it's really, really good. That one's going to be a little bit harder to find, but Manchego you can pretty much find everywhere. Right in the center of everything that's happening right there in Europe is, of course, Switzerland. Beautiful Gruyere from Switzerland, soft cheese, very meltable. It's the base for a lot of amazing foods out there. It's going to be on the top of your French onion soup if they're doing it correctly at the restaurant. I know it's Swiss, but yes, it's on top of French onion soup. That's how good it is, people, and very meltable, great on of all types of burgers, sandwiches. Yeah, just really, really good stuff. Appenzeller is another fun one to try from the Swiss. Amazing stuff. Right here in the US, we're also doing some really, really cool stuff with cheese. As we know, we have a huge, huge dairy land in states like Wisconsin. Pleasant Ridge Reserve is a standout for me from the state of Wisconsin. They're doing fabulous thing with cheeses, and they've really got it dialed in up there. Here in California, of course, we can't talk about great dairylands without talking about California, and of course, our creameries here producing things like Humboldt Fog. Ugh, wow, what an awesome, awesome cheese. You need to get your hands on some. If you like, again, a little stinkier, a little funkier, that's a really fun one to try. And then back over the pond to the UK. What's the most famous UK cheese out there? That is, of course, is going to be cheddar. Cheddar cheese, extremely popular here in the States, all over the world, but it was born in the United Kingdom and in a town called, guess what? Cheddar. And they're doing really, really fun things with cheddar cheese over there of all kinds. Not fresh, but slightly aged cheddar cheeses all the way up to years and years of sitting and the flavors just melding, like a good chili or soup. It's just all those flavors come together when it gets to sit around for a while, and cheddar cheese is absolutely awesome. Red Leicester is another fun one if you can get your hands on it. And Stilton is their foray into the blue cheese world. And of course, we can't talk about cheese from the UK without mentioning Stilton as well. Another one you definitely want to get your hands on. Every cheese region in the world has its own signature. They're often produced in and around where wine is produced for obvious reasons. And the wine and the cheese from a specific region, they're great combinations. You put this one together and this one together. You put a little red burgundy together with some Epoisse, and it's going to blow your mind. I did an episode just recently about terroir, and, terroir is no joke, folks. What's coming from the land, what's coming from the people, what's coming from the soil and the sky and the love that they're putting into it, it not only works for wine, but the same thing holds true when it comes to cheese. And I love to create a beautiful charcuterie board with some great cheeses from the same region that my wine is coming from. And that's a really, really great place to start. And speaking of pairing cheese and wine, let's segue right into that. Let's talk about a little magic. Wine and cheese pairings. I've touched on this in other shows, but I really wanted to put a finer point on it. I want to say rules, but I don't want to say rules. You are going to have a better experience if you follow some of these guidelines. let's call it that. Let's follow these guidelines for a better experience. But you drink what you like and you eat what you like, 100%. With fresh cheeses, you are going to love crisp white wines with fresh cheese. Sauvignon Blanc, Albarino, Trebbiano from Italy, just crisp, beautiful white wines. Love fresh cheese. That is a great place to start. The soft ripened cheese pair very, very well with sparkling wines. So, your champagnes, if you're going to do something from France, maybe pair it with a little champagne or some Cremant is a great choice. If you're going to do, let's bring up Manchego again. Manchego, I know that's not a soft ripened cheese, but it's also going to pair really well with Cava. It's kind of what it is. And then, maybe something on the light red side, perhaps a Grenache or a Pinot Noir going along with these soft ripened cheeses would be really, really fun. Hard cheeses, and that's what I was getting at a minute ago, hard cheeses are flexible. So the Manchego with sparkling wine, perfect. You can do these harder cheeses with aged red wines. Absolutely, absolutely doable. Maybe something a little bit creamier and going with a nice creamy Chardonnay. That would be fabulous with some of these harder cheeses. Highly, highly recommended. Blue cheeses, they do best. They really do shine with sweet wines. And we talked a while ago about food and wine pairing, and I think I may even have brought this up in that episode that blue cheeses pair so well with sweeter wines because it's such a juxtaposition, it's such a contrast between the funky, salty cheese and the sweet, perhaps nuttiness of a dessert wine. Think port wine from Portugal, think Sauterne from France. Just amazing, amazing pairing qualities together. Really, really fun to taste. I would do, actually, I think I will do, I would do a whole blue cheese board and pair that with different types of sweeter wines from around the world. I'm going to write that down once I'm done recording here. I sometimes have these epiphanies, but I think that would be really, really a lot of fun. Last but certainly not least, those washed rind cheeses that I was talking about earlier, those funky cheeses, those stinky cheeses, those absolutely fabulous cheeses. If you're afraid of funky cheese, don't, because 9.9 times out of 10, they do not taste how they smell. You just have to get past the smell of these washed rind cheeses, and they are going to absolutely change your world. These cheeses need something a little more bold. On the white wine side, I'm thinking, German wine, big, bold white wines, Gewürztraminer, Riesling, great options with these washed rind cheeses. And, of course, Pinot Noir. Red Burgundy, Pinot Noir, go really, really well. And just to pop up for just a second, blue cheese also goes extremely well with Cabernet Sauvignon and wines from the Bordeaux region of France, Merlot, especially Cab, and to a lesser degree, Merlot goes so well with blue cheese, something you definitely want to try. But Pinot Noir is going to be a dear friend of these washed rind cheeses, and you are absolutely going to love it. When I want to give you a tip for pairing wine and cheese, you want to match intensity. This is a place where, yes, you can contrast between sweet and salty and and all of these different things, but intensity is the thing that you want to work on. So don't overpower a delicate creamy chèvre cheese, goat cheese, with a bold cap. You're just going to completely ruin the cheese, and quite frankly you're going to ruin the wine. So don't do that. And don't pair a blue cheese with these light light white wines, because you're going to do the cheese a disservice and you're not even going to taste the wine at that point, which, what's the point of that? So What I'm trying to say here, people, is that balance is key when it comes to pairing cheese and wine. So you've found all these great cheeses. You're going to go to your favorite shop and you're going to pick up some of these cheeses. And what do we do now? What do we do now, Nick? Well, here's what you're going to do. There is a right way to eat cheese, and here are a few tips. Temperature. Temperature absolutely does matter when it comes to cheese. As I mentioned earlier, I like to let my pois sit out and come to room temperature. You don't have to allow it to sit out for that long, but I like for it to come to room temperature before I slice into it. That is my preferred method. You want to start by taking all of your cheeses out of the fridge at least 30 minutes before you're going to serve it. 30 to 60 minutes is ideal, and room temperature for most cheeses is going to bring out the full flavor of those cheeses. If you've ever been eating from a charcuterie board and you go when it's first put out, I have. So maybe you've had the same experience. Is you go for a piece of cheese when it's first put out, and then you go back, 20, 30, 40 minutes later and grab the same piece of cheese. And just like a great glass of wine, it's opened up, it's got different flavors, it's creamier, it's gooier, whatever it is. You're going to like your cheese so much better if it sits outside of the fridge for at least a little bit of time. 30 minutes, again, at least. Texture is also a key thing to think about when you are serving. Hard cheeses, they like to be sliced thin, or you can break them into chunks or shards with a good cheese knife. Just break them down. And then gooier cheeses like the softer cheese, the brie cheese, and the washed rind cheeses, you're just going to let them do their thing. You're going to sit them out, you're going to let them come up in temperature, and I would recommend not cutting into them. If you're doing a family thing or a party or whatever, you're usually going to get some sliced brie when you go to a restaurant or so on, because you're probably not going to eat a whole wheel of brie with you and your significant other at the table. But in the case of doing a wine tasting or a party of some type, just go ahead and put out the whole wheel and don't cut into it. You've got some great melty cheeses out there. Fondue, comes to mind. Let's get some of that Gruyere cheese and make a great fondue out of it. Or some baked brie is absolutely wonderful. And your fondue, baked brie, any other type of warm cheese goes really, really well with sparkling wines. The melting of the cheese is going to bring out the richness. It's going to bring out the fat and the oils that are in that cheese. And what you need is something nice and acidic and brightness to cut through that fat in the cheese. So that's what I would highly recommend there. And again, you will not regret it. Trust me. So we've got our tips. We've got our cheeses. We have a little education on where they come from. And I've been talking about charcuterie boards now, for the last 20 minutes. So let's talk about how the wine guy builds the perfect charcuterie board. And for me, it is all about contrast. It's all about variety. And of course, let's have a little bit of fun with it too. If you're having a group of 8 to 10 or so people over to the house, 3 to 5 cheeses is going to be plenty. If you're having more people, more options might be good. But let's say we're having a group of 10 over to your place for a little dinner party or wine tasting or whatever you're doing. Of those 3 to 5 cheeses, you want to aim for different textures. You want to aim for different milk types as well: goat, cow, sheep. Those are the 3 general ones. And you want to opt for different intensities as well. Have a brie, but also have a blue cheese. Get yourself some Epoisse, but also have some Comté cheese, which is not nearly as intense as the Epoisse is. So that is a really, really good thing to do. And again, shout out to my dear friend Irene Clemente, who taught me a lot of new stuff about making charcuterie boards, and these are some of her favorites as well. Nuts, dried fruits, honey, of course, some type of jam. I wouldn't go necessarily strawberry jam, but fig jam is wonderful. Maybe an orange marmalade would be fantastic as well. And of course, I said charcuterie at the top of this segment, but I meant cheese, and then we're going to add charcuterie to that board, some cured meats, maybe some sausages, something along those lines. Really, really savory stuff to go along with the cheese, to go along with the sweetness of the dried fruits and the jams. And of course, we cannot forget the olives on a charcuterie board or a cheese board as well. Try to have at least one type of olive on that. You can't go wrong with Spanish olives, of course. I actually like Kalamata olives quite a bit on my charcuterie boards because they tend to be saltier and they have this very rich taste to them, so they pair really well with the lighter cheeses like the brie and so on. Goat cheese and Kalamata olives. Of course, we talked earlier about getting cheese and wine from the same area of the world. Well, how about olives coming from Europe, let's say southern France, and some beautiful goat cheese coming from southern France as well. Really, really good stuff. Let's have a little flair when we're serving this stuff too, folks. Wooden boards are great, of course. Slate is becoming a very popular thing right now. Just be careful with slate. It does tend to break pretty easily when you're washing it and so on. So use slate, absolutely, but just be careful with it. Even a big cutting board. Get yourself a nice cutting board. And another great tip for you, especially if you're having a party and you're not there babysitting the cheese board the whole time, let's label your cheeses. Let's put a little something in it, a little tent, or whatever, telling your guests what type of cheeses are out there. It's going to kick up your presentation that much better, and it's going to be awesome. And of course, you shouldn't serve a cheese and charcuterie board without some wine, of course. So I always recommend having at least 2 to 3 different wine options to go along with your charcuterie board. And again, if you need help with this, if you need some advice, reach out to me on social media, shoot me an email, cheers@thewineguy.vin, VIN, or just hit me up on my website, and I'd be happy to talk to you about some great options. If you have questions beyond what I've already talked about today, happy to talk through those with you. And I'm happy to help you plan your next event. So definitely reach out to me and we can talk about options too. But I'm always happy to give you some free advice as well. All right, Cheese Champions. That is going to be a wrap on today's episode. Just going to keep it short and sweet. Curds, the culture, and killer pairings. Cheese is so much more than a snack. It's a sensory adventure, and it's absolutely wine's most delicious sidekick. 100%. If you want help creating the perfect pairings, go ahead and comment on this recording, cheese please, or hit me up on social media, cheese please, when I put out my sneak peeks, and I will send you my wine and cheese pairing chart. It's fun and it's free, and all you have to do is say cheese please on one of my channels. I would appreciate it. And while you're there, please give me a like, please give me a follow, subscribe, follow, all the things. Just hit all the darn buttons, while you're there. I would really, really appreciate it. If you love this episode, I would also appreciate it if you left me a review. And of course, share it with your favorite wine and cheese buddy. Tag me on Instagram with your best cheese board pictures that you took. Don't pull something off the internet and try to wow me with it. And I'm going to reintroduce my friend Irene here on social media as well. So with that being said, until next time, everybody, keep wondering and keep wandering. Cheers. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Pour and Explore.
I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, or your questions, so you can drop me a line at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links on my website at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everyone.